Hello and welcome to our briefing, Making the Best Use of Progress Reviews. This briefing is particularly for IT coordinators who are writing ECT progress reports. That might be that you're writing progress reports either for the first time, or it might be useful that this is a reminder if you are coming back to doing them after a short break. We think also this briefing might be useful for senior leaders who are responsible for quality assurance for the provision within the school. You will have seen this slide before in some of our other briefings, but it's a reminder that as an appropriate body we have some statutory duties which we need to discharge, and that is around monitoring the support and ensuring the ECTs have their statutory entitlements, and also making sure that we have enough information to make that final decision together with the head teacher on when the ECT has satisfactorily met the teaching standards at the end of year 2. Both these points will come into the assessments because at assessment point we'll be re-asking both the ECT and the induction tutor to confirm that the ECT has all their statutory entitlements, and we'll be looking at the evidence to make sure it's robust and we've got enough evidence there to confidently say the ECT is on track to satisfactorily meet the teaching standards. There are 2 formal assessment points within the 2-year programme, and that's at the end of year 1 and at the end of year 2. Now if the ECT starts in September, that will be summer 1 and summer 2, but obviously depends where they'll start. But the box below shows you what that might look like for an ECT who begins in September. Whenever there isn't a formal assessment point, so in the example below that's autumn 2 and spring 2 for both year 1 and year 2, then the induction tutor will be asked to complete a progress review, which is a shorter review on how well the ECT is doing up to that point. You'll find on our website the full details, and also in our newsletters that we send out around when the assessment dates are due. And you'll find a completed table similar to this one on here that will say what the term is. So it might say term 1, and it'll say if you're expecting to complete a progress review, what date you'll be able to start writing it, which is the release date, which is the earliest date you'll be able to submit it to us for an appropriate body for review, and then the final date that we ask for all assessments to be due in by. We would really ask please that you meet the deadline of that assessment due date. Our assessors are employed and ready, and they do have dates in their diary ready to review the assessment reports that are in with us, so it's really important that we meet those dates please. You'll find that all future assessment points will be on our website, as well as being shared in the newsletter. Part-timers will have a different assessment date. You'll be able to note those through ECT Manager, but any issues please do contact us. So now down to the progress review. So it's not as long as the formal assessment review, but it does have some things that are very similar around it. And the first bit is that there's a mantra of no surprises. So we're not expecting any ECT to get to an assessment point and then suddenly being told that there might be an issue or they're not making the progress that they thought that they were. So in between assessment points, if there's any concerns at all, then we would please ask that you flag those concerns at your earliest convenience, and that you do this by using the alert function on ECT Manager that then sits within the ECT's records, and we can monitor that, and where appropriate we'll ask you to put a support plan in place. The process for completing progress reviews is the induction tutor who writes the progress reviews, and when they open the report in ECT Manager, the first thing we'll ask you to do is to confirm that the ECT has set their statutory requirements, that you'll write your comments in there, and you'll discuss those comments with the ECT before they're finalised in the report. Once they're in there and you've submitted those in, then the ECT, we ask them also to reflect on the targets that they've been given, and also ask them to comment on the statutory requirements that are in place. We ask them a few questions around what the induction's looking like for them, just to check that that's all as expected. So when you go into ECT Manager, you'll see when the assessment's ready to be released, as you open it up, one of the first things it'll ask you to do is make a decision around where the ECT's at. And we've got 3 options for that. We've got option 1 is that the ECT is doing very well and the evidence is secure against all teaching standards. We've got option 2 that we're not concerned about the ECT, but it might be due to the time of year or the early nature of induction that ECT is not yet secure in all areas of the teaching standard. Now, we don't see that as a concern as long as we're telling the ECT that as they go along, but quite often in the first few progress reviews, that's where ECTs would be at. Or option 3, no, the ECT does not yet have secure evidence and they're not on track. And that's where we'd already expect you to be communicating with us through the alert function so that we know those ECTs who need a little extra support. Once you've done that bit and you've confirmed whether they're on track and whether they're on track securely or not, you'll be asked to give brief details, and we recommend that we're looking for around 300 words around where that evidence comes from. So I've said yes, the ECT is on track, but it's not yet secure. In those 300 words against the teaching standards, I would be expecting to say the evidence is secure in this teaching standard because this is how I know it and this is where I've got the evidence from. You might also want to, in that section, give some brief reasons and details around where they're not secure and why they're not yet secure. Bullet point 2 on here states that it's important to list any teaching standards, including personal and professional conduct, where there is a cause for concern and they're not on track. So we do need a little bit more detail around those points if that's possible. So you've written your assessment and the ECT, you've written your progress review, and the ECT has commented on their progress review, and you press submit, and then it comes to us as an appropriate body. So we've got assessment submitted, and then the assessment is reviewed by the appropriate body. So not all appropriate bodies review all progress reviews. We actually do. We actually read them and comment on all of them. So it will be reviewed by a trained member of our team. They'll also have a cluster lead who they'll refer any difficult situations to or anything they're not sure around, and the cluster lead will also sample some of the reviews as well to make sure that we've got parity across our system. They'll then give some feedback to you on the system, and then it'll be submitted forward. So we don't accept the first draft of every progress review. Majority we do, but there's some reasons why we might send progress reviews back to you. And we might send them back if there's insufficient evidence, particularly if that evidence is not against the teaching standards. If within the written part of the text there's some indication that the ECT is not receiving their full statutory entitlement, either that being from a comment from the ITE coordinator or a comment from the ECT themselves, we would ask for further clarification on that. Throughout the year, we'll continue doing a quality assurance process. And that will include sending surveys to ECTs, asking them about their induction process, and we also visit around 10% of our schools annually to be able to share some good practice and think about how together we can make the process even better. So there is a briefing on school visits if that's something that becomes of interest to you, but for the moment we just want to flag that we'll be visiting schools, not because we're concerned about them, but just part of a quality assurance process. Once the progress review has gone through and the assessors have assessed them and they've agreed to accept them, the assessor then completes a short form to us and they summarise the feedback that they've given. This is really useful for us as an appropriate body, and we hope this becomes really useful to you because they're able to summarise for us after seeing lots and lots of assessments, the things that went really well and the things that would be more useful. We collate that together and share that back with you in the form of our newsletters. So one of the themes questions that's been coming through recently in terms of assessments is some of the ECT comments on always as reflective and as useful around the next stages. So we'd feed that back to you for a newsletter so that's something that you can do to improve on the next set of reports coming through. If you've got any further questions or there's anything we can do to help further, then our email address is on there. Please do get in touch with us. Please don't think that you can't if there's something you'd like some help with, even if it's the first time that you're writing progress reviews and you're not quite sure what we're looking for in them. The other bit that would be really useful for you is to go under the resources tab on ECT Manager, and you'll find some examples on there as well of progress reviews that we've added, of ones that where we would be happy to accept and provide evidence in the form that we would like. So thank you very much for listening. Please do stay in touch with us, and we hope that you found the briefing useful.